Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the Election Commission of India and how elections are conducted in India. What are the types of elections, how the elections to the office of President and Vice President are conducted, and so on. So let us begin. Why elections? And where elections are important in which forms of government? So remember, elections is a democratic process where people in a democracy choose their leaders, and the process through which they choose their leaders is called election. When we talk about democracy, the most common definition of democracy that we come across is that is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Right. So how is democracy, how anyone makes it function? If it is a government of the people, means there are a group of people who rule the government. By the people means people elect their representatives or their leaders, and for the peoples. So once we elect the group of people, it works for those people, for the masses. So that's why a democracy functions only when these elections are held in a smooth and impartial manner. Why an impartial manner is necessary? So that all the people who are electing their representatives, they are free to choose from amongst the leaders that whom they want the person to rule them, whom they want to be their prime minister. And this can be possible when the people are not prejudiced by anyone out of fear, out of biasness, out of prejudiceness. This should normally not be the manner of choosing or electing a leader. Right? So the election commission ensures that all the elections that take place in a democracy like India, which is the largest democracy in the world, people should elect their leaders in a very smooth manner, and the process through which they elect their leaders is called elections. So before understanding election commission, we need to understand certain basic terms like elections, what are the kinds of elections, where do we elect our leaders, what do they do. So let's begin this one by one. So foremost, we come to the definition of election, meaning of election. So election, we can say it is a democratic process through which people choose their representatives by voting. So foremost, you need to remember that it is a democratic process, a process where there is actual and active participation of the masses. And what do we do that? Through this process, we elect our leaders. So the first thing that elections ensure is that we have citizen participation. So all the people who are above the age of 18 years, they participate in the election. This is known as universal adult franchise, which is mentioned under Article 326 of the Constitution. Then there is government accountability. See what happens when we elect our leaders. So we are electing them to make laws for the country through the parliament, make policies, deal with other countries on behalf of India. So that doesn't mean that once we have elected our leaders, they can do anything. As per the Constitution of India, it is said that the ultimate power rests with the people of India. If you will ever open the preamble to the Constitution, you will understand that it says, we the people of India. Right? So ultimate sovereignty as per the Constitution rests with the people, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So we have to follow the mandate of the Constitution. So once we have elected our leaders, we have to make sure that that government is accountable to the people. Means that they cannot go uncontrolled, untamed. They cannot make policies, laws, whatever they feel like. They have to respond to the people when they are questioned. And this process should be done peacefully. So whenever we are electing our leaders, this entire process should be a very peaceful manner. Because see, there is a lot of discussions around power and politics. Every time we choose a leader, it has to be done through fair elections. To ensure that the elections are fair and impartial, it has to be done by the Election Commission. If you see in the history, there have been incidences of booth capturing, where people, the normal citizens, were forced to vote for certain people out of fear. So eventually, when these habits became very frequent, then the Election Commission became more powerful, more powers were granted to it. And the ultimate objective was that every time there's an election, the Election Commission should ensure that it is free and impartial. So, election, it is a democratic process where we, the masses, elect their leaders. And if we say how it happens through participation of the people. It then results into the government accountability, and this entire process has to go in a very smooth manner. Next, we come to the concept, what are the kinds of elections? Now, you all have heard about the parliament. If we say what is the composition of the parliament, when we say union parliament is a phrase, what comprises of union parliament? So the union parliament comprises of three groups of people, the president, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Fine. Now try to understand how the entire democracy works. When we talk about elections, there are direct elections and there are indirect elections. So when we are talking about direct elections, so every time you all must have by now experienced that there are elections and people go for voting and then they post their pictures with the ink mark uh, showing as an evidence that they have voted and they have done their duty as a citizen by participating in the elections. What these people, they go to the Lok Sabha and the persons, the political parties who attains the majority of the seats, who wins the majority of the seats in Lok Sabha, then their leader becomes the prime minister. So here what is happening? We are electing the people who are going to represent us in the Lok Sabha. See, if we say party A is headed by Mr. X, and if we vote for party A, we know that ultimately Mr. X is going to be the prime minister because he is the head of this party. So we know that if we are voting for this party, then so and so is going to be our leader, our prime minister. So here there is a direct participation. Indirect elections take place where we elect our representatives under direct elections, and on our behalf they further participate in elections. Now this happens in the elections of president and vice president. Now I will give you a simple example which will make it more clear for you. There are captains to be elected in your school. We all have different houses in the school. And then we have to elect our captains. So what happens? We have certain nominations, and out of that, all the students of the school participate in that election and they vote. Clear? This is like direct election. We are electing our own captain. Now suppose after that, there is a scenario where an important point needs to be discussed for the students by the teachers, but it is not possible for the teachers to gather all the students. So what they can do is they can call in all the captains representing the students, the houses, and then they can ask only the captains to give their opinion on a point. So Here it is indirect election. You have elected the captains. Now the captains are opting for A, B, or deciding on your behalf. So this is how indirect election takes place. Now here I've given you examples of direct and indirect elections both. Go through them. This will further become clear when we will talk about the elections, the houses, etc. So now we come to the election of President of India, which is an indirect election. So what happens here? The President is elected through indirect election, which I have just told you, where our elected representatives participate on our behalf, but we, the masses, do not participate directly in the election of the President of India. Article 54 of the Constitution talks about this provision. Now, who all participate in the election of the President? It is not everyone. Remember what terms are being used. Now, students, you have to be very careful about certain terms. Legal studies and law is not like any other subject where general terminology can be used. Just like in biochemistry, you have certain specific terms which are required to be used. The same requires in legal studies. So, see, when we say the president is elected by the electoral college, so electoral college is a group of people, not everyone. Just like I was talking about where all the captains of the school participate, not all the students. So in a similar manner, we are talking about the elections of the vice president. Now here, number one, elected members of the Lok Sabha. Mark the term elected members. Elected members of Rajya Sabha and elected members of state legislative assemblies. So there are three things, but one thing is common, elected members. So see, in both the houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, there are two categories of people, elected and nominee. Elected, the ones that the common masses elect through elections, and nominated, the ones that are nominated by the president. So we have people nominated from special fields, certain fields. So those are the ones who are nominated. So the nominated members never participate in the election of the President of India. It is only the elected members. Now the second point comes the state legislative assemblies. See, just like we have Lok Sabha at the center, we have state legislative assemblies at the state level, right? Vidhan Sabha. Lok Sabha works for the entire country, union. When we say Union of India, that means India, the country as a whole. And your state legislative assembly does the same work but for the state. So all the elected members of these three bodies only participate in the election of the President of India. The election is done through secret ballot and the manner is single transferable voting system. The President, as per Article 56, remains in his office for 5 years unless he resigns earlier. So the election of the president, you can say it is an indirect election. How it happens? Now you understand the method of it and you've understood that why we call it an indirect election. Next, we come to the types of election in India. So foremost, let us understand how the vice president is elected. So even the vice president is elected indirectly and the provisions regarding his election are provided under Article 66 of the Indian Constitution. His term is also 5 years, but let us see his electoral college. The members of Lok Sabha and members of Rajya Sabha elected as well as nominated. Now, this is a major difference that you must keep in mind. And questions can be asked on this point to confuse you. Again, I'm repeating, when we talk about the president, it is only the elected members. But when we talk about the election of the vice president, it can be elected and nominated members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. He is also known as the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Now remember, ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, again a very important point on which questions can be asked. So keep your eyes and ears very clear on this point. Be very vigilant. These are the questions which are most common ones and where students make mistakes. Now, when we talk about general elections of Lok Sabha, which is also called the lower house of the parliament. So here we have the general elections are conducted as per the provisions mentioned under Article 81. Then the composition of the Lok Sabha. Remember we were talking about what is the minimum number that is required by a political party to attain in order to claim majority in the Lok Sabha. That talks about composition of the Lok Sabha under Article 83, then talks about the term of the Lok Sabha. So you have Article 81, which talks about its composition, and then you have Article 83, which talks about its term, which is 5 years. Now understand what we say when we mean the term of the Lok Sabha is 5 years, the life of the Lok Sabha is 5 years. We will deal with this further when we talk about mid-term elections. Fine. So generally, as of now, every 5 years, general elections are conducted where the people participate and elect their own leaders from the territorial constituency. Now, each political leader is given an area that he represents, and that is called a constituency. So that takes place, and then the elections takes place at every 5 years. So general elections, and you have the president, the election of the president and vice president through indirect elections. Then we come to the point mid-term elections. Now here try to understand. This is in sync with the life of the Lok Sabha that we say 5 years. Now the entire Lok Sabha has a number of seats. As per the constitution, there is a certain number that a party must occupy that number of seats if it wants to form its government. If a political party, a single political party, is successful in winning majority of the seats, that required number of seats in the Lok Sabha, then they alone form the government. For example, current party is BJP. Now, when we talk about, for example, imagine a scenario where an election takes place. All the members that we are electing through general elections who go to the Lok Sabha, and majority of them are elected by us, and they reach that minimum number that is to be acquired by a political party. So they can then form the government, and their leader is invited to become the prime minister and form the government. But suppose if there is no one single political party that can form the government altogether, that cannot attain that number of seats, then what happens? The country cannot run without a government. We need a leader, we need a prime minister. So what we do is, we see that one political party has attained or gained 100 votes, next has got 70 votes, the other one has got 120 votes. There is no one party which has got all the seats, the minimum number of seats required to form a government, the quorum. So what we say is, these parties, they join hands. So party A says, I've got 100 seats, party B says, I've got 70 seats, let's join hands. And party C says, I've got 20 seats, and if 3 of us get together, we come together, then we will reach that minimum number which is required to get the seats in the Lok Sabha. Now, when more than one political party come together to form a government, that is known as coalition government. Clear? So, now, one thing, the life of the Lok Sabha is for 5 years. When no political party is able to attain that minimum number of seats in the Lok Sabha, one or then more than one political party come together, they join hands and they form a coalition government. Now, what happens? They have formed a coalition government, and in the process, in between 5 years, there is some disagreement between these parties, and they do not want to run the government together anymore, and they take away their support. They withdraw their support. Then what happens? Suppose a political party C, which had 20 seats with them, they say that I'm not willing to support you anymore. I do not agree to your policies. I am withdrawing my support. So again, the coalition government, it falls short of 20 votes. Fine. Again, the required minimum number of seats in the Lok Sabha, they fall short. So what happens? The House dissolves, right? When this happens, before the Lok Sabha completes its life for its term of 5 years, it is known that the House has been dissolved. And then we have to conduct the elections again, and these are known as mid-term elections. I hope this is clear now. Now, mid-term elections are conducted for entire Lok Sabha because once again we need a leader. The country cannot run without a leader. Clear? Now, why mid-term elections take place? Loss of majority, which I just explained. The government, there's instability. There is a break in coalition government. So, in such matters of exigencies, we have to conduct mid-term elections. We cannot say that the current Lok Sabha was to run for 5 years. Now there are 2 years left. Let us continue like this. We cannot do that because we need to have a leader, and for that we need to have that minimum number of seats of the Lok Sabha with us. Clear? Now, by-elections. By-elections are held to fill a vacancy in a legislature. Clear? Now, what are these? These are casual vacancies. For example, some political leader dies, he resigns, he becomes disqualified on account of anti-defections law, or there could be corruption charges, there could be any other criminal cases against him which have been all of a sudden brought forth into notice. So out of these, the person needs to resign from his post. So there occurs a casual vacancy. And to fulfill this, we need to have by-elections. Clear? Now, by-elections are conducted only in the concerned constituency. Clear? Now, see, I just told you that each political leader has been given a territorial area to represent that geographical area. That is called his constituency. So suppose if he becomes disqualified from his constituency, he can conduct a by-election. That means we need a political leader to represent that physical geographical area. This is not done on a national level. This is done only at a constituency level. Then we come to the regulatory body, the Election Commission of India. Now, this is the regulatory body which has been entrusted with the task to ensure that the democracy runs on the right track, that the people elect their leaders impartially, make the right decision, and everything goes peacefully. There is no tussle of power, there is no corruption, there is no booth capturing, and the election should be done in a free and fair manner because that is the essence of the Constitution of India. So now the Election Commission, what you say, it is a permanent, independent and constitutional body responsible for the superintendence, direction and control of elections. So what is it? It is a permanent, independent body, right? And constitutional. Constitutional body means it finds its mention, it finds its existence in the Constitution. And what is its task? Superintendence, direction and control of elections in India. If they say is there a provision, we just said that it is a constitutional body, so it finds its method under Article 324 of the Constitution. Where or to what bodies the election commissions looks into the election? It looks into the elections of parliament, state legislature, and the offices of president and vice president. Now remember, the elections of the president and vice president, what we have learned, just that it is an indirect election, but yet the election commission looks into it. Then what is the composition of this election commission? So foremost, one chief election commissioner, right? And other members, such number of members which the president may appoint from time to time. Now remember, the chief election commissioner cannot be removed from his office just like that. It is a very important role. So the process to remove the chief election commissioner is similar to that we follow for the removal of a judge of a Supreme Court. The only procedure that needs to be followed when we want a chief election commissioner to be removed, that is the same procedure that we follow for the removal of a judge of a Supreme Court. Now we come to the term of the office. So it is 6 years or till the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. So either one attains 65 years, then he retires, or for 6 years he serves the office and then he moves out of the office. So again, this ensures its appointment, its removal, it ensures that it is an independent body. Now, the election commission needs to be independent and free from influence, because remember, we are talking about elections, and election means ruling the country, whoever is elected as the prime minister. So this is a great turning point of powers. So in order to ensure that there is no corrupt practice followed, we have made the provision of election commission, and more importantly, we have made the provision of election commission being an independent body. So it does not act under the influence of any political party. Next, we come to the powers and functions of the election commission. So foremost, it is the obviously preparation of electoral rolls and photo identity cards. Who are the voters? Nowadays you're seeing there's a lot of hustle going on about the SIR project, right? Where we need to give our details once again regarding our votes, our residence, our citizenship. So the entire process to ensure that the citizens of India only participate in the voting, the Election Commission is charged with the function of preparation of electoral colleges and identity cards. Then allotment of election symbols. Now, why symbols are important? See, when we gained independence and the constitution was adopted, literacy was not present everywhere. All the people were not literate. So they could not read or write, but they could recollect through pictorial representations. So many a times, even a few years back, when you would talk to the people in the villages, and if you ask them, whom will you vote? They will not take the names. They will say, I will vote that symbol. So this is how they recognized their leaders. So that's why, and it is very important for the political parties to have a symbol, and this symbol is allotted to them by the election commission. Then fixing dates and conducting elections. When will elections take place? How will they take place? How will the candidates access the polling booths? And then the duties, everything is done by the election commission. And last but most important, to ensure that the elections are free and fair. There is no corrupt practice that is practiced during elections. There is no influence done. If you'll see that Many a times people say before election that code of conduct has been imposed. So this code of conduct helps prior to the elections. You must have seen people doing their marketing, advertising, convincing, what we call it, a typical word. But just a few days before the election, everything is stopped. Why? Because you have portrayed yourself as a leader. You have told the general public what you want if you come to power, what will you do, and you have told them through your convincing, through pamphlets, through advertisements over the radio, through televisions, right? So each political party does this. That means once you are through, you have told the masses what you are going to do. After that, just few days before the elections, this is everything is stopped. Means the leaders, the political parties now cannot do convincing. They cannot now tell the people. Why? This is a cooling off period. This time period is given to the masses to think and not to get influenced. So this is how the entire elections take place. And when we give time to the masses, it means that they should reflect upon it and they should not take the decision immediately under the influence of any leader or political party. Now, some of the powers of the election commissions: appointment of polling officers who are going to conduct, who are going to supervise, presiding officers who is going to preside, everything means the functioning, the conducting of the elections. Then scrutiny of nomination papers, that all the details that the political leader has filled are right. The affidavits, they are required to take oath that yes, all the information that I have submitted is true to my knowledge. So all these nomination papers, when the persons, the leaders fill, they scrutinize that all the information is right, there is no false evidence attached. Then scrutiny of election expenses. How much is it going to cost? There are massive costs that they are incurred in elections in a country like India, right? So how much the elections are going to cost, what is going to be the detailed expenditure, everything. And lastly and most importantly, advisory functions. Election Commission gives advices, right, to the President of India. Now here are some important articles that you should mention. Article 103. Then under Article 192, it gives its advices to the governors of the state. Now, what are these advices? These advices are related to the disqualification of the members. Someone who's not filling the criteria, then he should be disqualified. He should not be allowed to contest the elections of the legislatures. So election disputes are there. So if they are asked, they give their advices to the president and the governors of the state. So this is all about elections: direct elections, indirect elections, by-elections, midterm elections, and ultimately a regulating body called the Election Commission of India, which sees that how the entire process goes well. So this is all about the elections and election commission in India.